Hey, what's going on everybody, and welcome back to another Fallout 4 Mods Weekly, the show where we recap some of the interesting mod releases that have come out during the week. And this week has been really special because we've gotten in a lot of creature mods, something that's usually pretty rare on the Nexus, but we have a ton of them all in 1 week. Let's go ahead and get started with Mutant Menagerie Horrors of the Deep Fog by Delicon20. That's right, the very popular mod Mutant Menagerie, which adds in tons of new creatures to the Commonwealth, now has an expansion that covers Far Harbor, hence the name Horrors of the Deep Fog. Now, this mod's going to actually do a couple of things. First of which is add over a bunch of appropriate creatures from the original Mutant Menagerie mod into Far Harbor, so things that would make sense like the Rad Raccoons. And it's also going to add in some new creatures that are unique to Far Harbor, which I think is really cool. I love going to different DLC locations in the vanilla game and finding out the really cool flora and fauna that they have to offer. And now this mod is going to add that experience to an even deeper extent. So like I said, this is going to add a variety of the original creatures into Far Harbor, but here's the list of the newly added creatures, and there are some really cool ones on here. For starters, there are some ambient creatures. These are going to be non-hostile enemies. This is going to include things like bobtails, which is a small octopus-like creature. The sea turtles, which is a new mutated version of a sea turtle. Pretty simple. We have the rad jellies. These are going to be some glowing irradiated jellyfish, which I think look really cool in the Fallout world. We have the hybrid section, which is going to include baskers, which is a new aquatic creature. This thing is pretty much non-hostile unless you attack it first. We have the giant crawdads, a new crustacean type enemy. The sea lurks, which is an ocean variant of the mirelurks, which I think is a pretty interesting idea. Then we have the heavy hitters. These are going to be big hostile enemies. For starters, we have barbers, which is essentially a giant squid with barbed tentacles. We have barracudas, which is going to be a multi-headed barracuda that will attack you in the water. We have devil rays, which is essentially a manta ray or a stingray. We have krakens, which are gigantic aquatic octopus-like creatures. If you know of krakens from folklore, it's gonna be basically that. Then we have man-o'-war floaters, which is going to be a hostile version of a jellyfish. We have the rad hammer, which is a mutated hammerhead shark with legs, and it's sort of like a mire. It's crazy. This one's absolutely insane. There are ticks added in Far Harbor, and there are also wendigos, which is really cool to see and definitely fitting for the aesthetic of Far Harbor. On top of these newly added creatures, there are also a new variant of creatures known as fog-touched creatures. These are essentially going to be like a glowing or quantum variant, except these are unique to Far Harbor. So if you see something with a fog touched in front of it, just know that it's going to be a pretty beefy enemy. And on top of all of that, there are also new world bosses. So there are static locations that are spread all around Far Harbor where you can fight some really big, powerful monsters. Altogether, this mod on its own is an amazing addition to Fallout 4, and this is just an expansion to the already great Mutant Menagerie. If you somehow haven't checked out Mutant Menagerie, go do that, download this mod with it, and then go into Far Harbor, and you will not be displeased. This is a really cool pack, and definitely one that is worth checking out for everybody. Not to mention that this mod is available for not only PC, but Xbox One as well. Moving on, we have another creature pack. This one we actually covered yesterday, and that is going to be FallEvil Complete Edition by KbeeAPB and Arroganz. This is just going to combine all of Arroganz's FallEvil creature mods into one big pack. So in case you haven't seen any of those before, there are 4 mods included in this pack. That's going to be the Paleheads, the Zombie Dog mod, the Beta Hunters, and the Liquor mod, all of which are going to be creatures from the Resident Evil franchise that have been brought into Fallout 4. Each of these are going to be added to the leveled list so you can find them out in the Commonwealth, and they will all have different variants as well. So it won't be just a standard enemy. You may find glowing variants, savage variants, different boss variants. All of these are integrated pretty well into the Fallout 4 leveled list. Despite not being from Fallout themselves, these creatures surprisingly fit pretty well in the universe, especially with some of those glowing variants to really cement them into Fallout 4's playstyle. Whereas Mutant Menagerie, all of the enemies tend to pretty much fit in the Fallout lore. FallEvil may be a little bit more polarizing. The die-hard lore-friendly people may say that it doesn't fit too well, while others just want more stuff to fight. And quite frankly, if you're just looking for more enemies, I highly recommend this one, as these are some really cool enemies added to the game, especially those beta hunters. They add a really cool new tough enemy similar to a Deathclaw to fight, and I really enjoyed those ones personally. Either way, if you're trying to add some Resident Evil enemies or just some more enemies in general into your game, this is another one that would be worth adding in, and you could even download it alongside Mutant Menagerie for even more variety amongst Fallout 4's enemy base. But hey, if you're somehow looking for even more variety, check out this next creature mod, which is Mojave Bighorners by HcGxGrill and TheFriedturkey. I promise this is the last of the creature mods, but this one is a really good one. If you ever played New Vegas, then you are very familiar with the Bighorner creature type. This is going to be a giant mutated ram, which does exactly that. It likes to ram its enemies. This is going to add a new semi-passive enemy into the game, but if you encounter one who is hostile, they are going to absolutely ram you and, quite frankly, knock you on your ass, just like they did in New Vegas. Not every attack is going to send you or your enemies flying, but each attack has the potential to. Just know that if you see these Bighorners ramming at you from a good distance, they are probably going to send you flying, which is a really fun and new unique way to have a combat encounter. Quite frankly, this mod is absolutely perfect for anybody who's just trying to bring in even more stuff from New Vegas or any classic Fallout. I personally love getting all of those worlds mixed together. Having a ram in the Commonwealth may not make the most sense, but there's no reason that this far into the future we haven't started to see some cross-country trade. It's possible that these guys may even be lugging some packages around, sort of like a pack Brahmin, and eventually these guys just migrated their way over to the Commonwealth. On top of the normal Bighorners that you will find out in the world anywhere you'd find Radstags, there is also a newly added companion named Wooly, so you can now have your own little baby Bighorner who will happily go and ram your enemies for you. Overall, another wonderful mod by HcGxGrill and TheFriedturkey as part of the Project Mojave mod. This is definitely a really cool one and worth picking up if you want more New Vegas stuff in your game. Alright, moving on from all of those creature mods, we actually have a weapon mod, and that is the FG42 Paratrooper Rifle by Golden Darknezz and Friends. This is going to add the FG42 into Fallout 4 as a one-of-a-kind unique weapon for you to find out in the Commonwealth, rather than adding this thing to the level list as it is a pretty rare antique German rifle. It has instead been added to one static location. Head over to Jamaica Plain into the time capsule room, and you will find one of these antiques sitting there ready for you to take. Once you have it, this is the only version of this weapon that you will find naturally, so be sure to take care of it and don't just sell it for those caps. Take this thing over to a weapons workbench and you will have a couple of attachments to add on, including some antique scopes and some different attachments, but there's also the option to add on a modern Picatinny rail, which will open up even more attachment slots so that you can throw on some modern optics. Some people may not like this as it ruins the retro style of the weapon or it removes it from the lore-friendly territory, but quite frankly, any survivor in the wasteland is going to be throwing any attachments they can find onto their weapons to make them even better, so it's not the biggest problem in my book. The biggest thing to know with this mod is that the weapon does have a static damage. You cannot increase it or decrease it with receivers, and it is a pretty high damage, so you will be dropping pretty big enemies very rapidly, which depending on your load order could be a really good thing or a really bad thing. So use this one at your own risk and see how it fits in your load order, and quite frankly, it's just a really cool looking rifle, so if you want it in your game, go ahead and add it. And then finally, for this week's Mods Weekly, we have the Modern Warfare 2 Remastered M4A1 by Winter. Now, this is actually a mod that we were lucky enough to get a mod preview of. I was able to get early access and check this mod out before it was even ready for release, and at that time, it was pretty bare bones because it was an early access alpha version of the mod, but it has since undergone a ton of updates and is now ready for a full release with a ton of new attachments, and it is absolutely beautiful. If you're a fan of classic Modern Warfare 2, then you will be very familiar with this variant of the M4. This thing is really cool looking, and it has a functional built-in M203 grenade launcher, which is always really fun to have even more variety in one single weapon. So you can take on either single enemies at a distance or groups of enemies with your grenade launcher. Now, this weapon will not be added to the level list. Instead, you will be crafting it over at the chemistry station. If you're using a tactical modern load order, I have a feeling that this won't be a big problem for you. And another thing is that this mod does require SREP in order to function. So you will need Wasteland Melody's service rifle and the SREP expansion for this thing to work, as it does take some animations from that mod. But if you have that weapon and you're looking for even more M4 variants, then you might as well pick this one up anyways, just to have more weapons to play with. This is a really cool one, and it is some excellent work by Winter. With that though, we bring this video to a close, and I hope you guys enjoyed. If you saw any mods that you want to try out for yourself today, they will all be linked down in the description below, along with Xbox links if there are any available. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a rating. Subscribe if you haven't already for more videos just like this, and I hope to see you in the next one. Peace! And really quick, I'd like to make a shout out to all of our patrons. Your donations are greatly appreciated and really help to support the channel and videos just like this one. So again, thank you.